Hey guys, this is Billy. Just wanted to welcome you to the first ever episode of Deep Cuts and Fresh Wounds. So, to break this down, it's pretty much a horror movie podcast that takes movies pre 2000 and compares them to movies post 2000. Anybody that knows me knows that this has been something I've been talking about for years, and I finally got on my ass and did it. It only took a plague to happen. Those that don't know me, I'm a tattoo artist out of upstate New York, and if you haven't been in a tattoo shop, there's a lot of open discussion about really nerdy topics like video games, comic books, and at least in any shop that I'm in, horror movies. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to transfer that vibe, that open floor discussion where anybody can jump in to a podcast, put it out on the internet so people can comment and get your input and maybe even pick future topics or discussion points. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Deep Cuts and Fresh Wounds. There's also a segment of the show called the Thunderdome, which will create debate topics. The first one is Xenomorph versus The Thing. Who wins? You tell us, and we'll read the comments on the next show, and maybe it'll, I don't know, end friendships or, be better than the presidential debates. All right, that's enough intro. Let's get to the meat of this thing. I just want to introduce my co hosts, Harry, Jason, and Ron, all three awesome guys that I met through the tattoo world. Excellent collectors of art on their bodies and elsewhere. Also, turns out way more knowledgeable about horror movies than myself, so should be pretty interesting over the next few episodes to truly dive into this stuff with them. Hope you guys enjoy. This is the first episode of Deep Cuts and Fresh Wounds, Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus Insidious.
Who are you?
So yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974.
Right off the bat, I mean, when you see that scroll in the beginning, obviously it starts out and you're like, holy shit, is this real? Is this not real? And I think that's the exact point of why people are so afraid of the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's also
absolutely.
it also hits home because people go on road trips, you know what I mean, all the time. And this is what it's based on,
Absolutely, man.
you
And
know.
and that I guess the realism is just going to constantly be a thing with this film. Even though we'll get into it where you don't actually see a whole lot, but the narrative that they're driving is that this actually happened. That these people went on a road
Yep.
trip and horrors on which anything we've ever seen before. What was it? Befell these youths. These Utes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
annals.
The annals. The
Yeah.
the bloody annals of American history.
For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yo, do you know John
Even if
Larroquette?
they-
Sorry about that, dude. John Larroquette actually
that's-
read that for a joint as payment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's like the best story I heard about it.
That's super fucking cool.
Yeah, man.
So we're talking about country 1974. We're talking pre 1977, where apparently this country just flipped the fuck out. So 1977, you have several rampant serial killers. You have the blackout in New York City. You have race riots. You have the birth of punk rock, the death of disco. Everybody is seemingly on cocaine.
Mhm.
There's a heat wave, all that stuff. And 3 years before that, you have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So really, their only point of reference, which is a weird thing to think about, all these movies that we have now, have little touchstones like, oh, that's like a Ted Bundy joke or that's a John Wayne Gacy thing. Really, what it boils down to with Texas Chainsaw Massacre is Ed Gein. This
Mm.
this
Absolutely.
little known story out of Middle America where this dude is quite literally making furniture out of people's body parts. Um, I made a lampshade out of your skin. To quote Blind Melon. That's right. There's a fucking Blind Melon quote in this.
It's awesome.
But
So
yeah,
like, yeah.
I mean, do you think the whole serial killer aesthetic even played a part in this? Is that even a thing?
I mean, you also have to think in '73, The Exorcist came out, so this was coming out right after that, and people were obviously having super reactions to that movie.
Yeah, didn't people like catch on fire and explode in the theater and shit?
Yeah, it was just insane. So,
That's awesome.
a big horror movie coming out the next year. I mean, people must have been flocking to the theaters as well.
I didn't even put that together that they're that close together. Yeah, man. Like people.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
They're letting their hair
then-
down after the '60s again.
The next year, 75 is Jaws.
Jaws, yeah.
Yeah, John.
And a lot of my interest in Texas Chainsaw is probably the cinematography, and that's a lot of my interest in Jaws these days is the cinematography.
Yeah.
And so like both of them are doing like really fundamental stuff, I think, with like how the camera's used.
Absolutely.
This is getting a little too technical already, but as far as the like setting the scene for like America, country in chaos, which is kind of where you're going, Billy. Like, remember the radio that's running throughout like the corpse monument thing, and like, so the radio. I wrote down some stuff. It talks about Texas refinery fires; they can't stop. San Francisco has a cholera epidemic. Houston has a series of violence following a suicide. Atlanta, there's a building that collapsed and killed like 20-something people. In Gary, Indiana, there's a bunch of murders of 2 women and desecrations of their bodies. It goes on and on. So like they're doing the same thing. They're trying to like set up a country in turmoil, right?
Yeah,
and then you have
yeah.
this like serial killer.
Yeah, and I guess that is like a common thing that people do, including myself, that we get our we get a filtered version of reality where like everything always seems like the end of the world's right around the corner. The newest cult is claiming that the end times are near, and then it passes, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, I guess like it, life isn't a total shit show all the time, but if you actually go back and start picking at scabs, it always kind of is. It is kind of a mess. So yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome that all that shit's on the radio. So they're already Toby Hooper is definitely going ahead and trying to almost subconsciously start just like setting the mood for this just super unsettling thing, and that this is just one blip on the radar, and they don't even have answers for it yet.
Yeah, I think so. And then like the astrology stuff, Pam's like super into Saturn's in retrograde.
Yeah.
Not to remind it, but like I think of other things that have been in retrograde now. Mercury, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
In 1974, it was Saturn, and she goes on, and they're like, "Do you really think this matters?" And it was like, "Well, duh, Pam." But anyway, so yes, more setting like the scene.
And also foreshadowing.
They're in Muerto County, Texas, which is amazing.
Oh, whoa! I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I'm checking if there's really a Muerto County.
Muerto.
There is.
Is it really nice?
Oh, no. It's just Texas Chainsaw, but that's still fantastic.
Yeah, that's killer.
That's awesome.
That's killer. That's killer. Fucking stupid. So, yeah, I've actually just looking over my notes here, and I thought it was kind of funny that Gunnar Hansen being the maniac, he apparently went to the casting call in Texas, where Toby Hooper was just kind of having like open calls and all that stuff, and his wife, or maybe not his wife, but his coworker, whatever, straight up asked Gunnar Hansen if he was like quote unquote violent and crazy in his like everyday life. And apparently Gunnar Hansen is actually a really sweet dude. He's just like this gentle giant. He was like 6'4".
Yeah, dude's huge.
Yeah, and then they gave him boots that made him like 6'7".
Jeez.
But yeah, he basically over the phone was telling him like, well, no, I'm not, that's not my normal demeanor, but I can play that part because I am an actor. And Toby Hooper didn't even ask him any questions when he actually showed up for the casting call because he was so goddamn big that he filled the door frame and it cast a silhouette on his back. Or the light coming from behind him, he just filled the doorway, and I guess that was one of the main inspirations for the scene, the door scene.
Oh, the good old door scene.
Yeah.
I was reading a bunch on him today too, and he wasn't even the original cast. I guess the first dude that they picked had to cancel, and then they had to like recall him back, or he called back, and then when he went to go see it, audition, like you said, he got it like immediately.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like crazy notes about this stuff. Like the actors, I guess, weren't even associating with him before he killed them. So they'd be on set. Nobody would really like talk to him and stuff. But once he killed their character, then they'd get all buddy with him. But he was sort of like, they said they didn't want to like hang out with their killer. I was also reading a lot of stuff. Since he was such a big dude, it was like, I mean, it was legit like filmed in Texas, right? And it was like 100 degrees plus. So I guess he got a little smelly, sweating all day. They had like one shower or something to share between like 15 people.
Yeah.
So people didn't want to eat near him and stuff because he just got sweaty. Poor dude.
What a perfect casting though for that guy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like it couldn't have gone any better. So that worked out perfectly.
Yeah, man. I also heard that when I was looking up stuff on Gunner that they only had one outfit for him, and they were super worried about continuity, I guess, through this whole movie. And so they had one outfit. They were worried that they were going to lose it in dry cleaning, so they wouldn't send it away, and they wouldn't wash it on set.
Oh man.
So
right.
yeah, it was 105 degrees outside, and it was 115 degrees inside the actual house.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then in the dinner scene, which is where people started getting really grossed out, was they actually had to film it during the daytime because it took so long to film. So they blacked out all the windows with black tarp and just continued filming.
Oh man.
So it was like 120 degrees in this house. And then again, because Toby Hooper's obsessed with continuity, he wouldn't remove any of the real food that was sitting on the table.
Yep, I heard that.
About that. It was nasty. Yep. Yeah. They said the main reason they did the dinner scene, apparently, they wanted to do it in one shot because the dude who played Grandpa didn't want to sit through whatever hours of makeup again. So he like refused. So like, all right, we'll try to do it one scene. So it was 27 hours. They had legit all the food and the meat and shit is real. So like rotting. People actually were running to the window to barf out of it in between takes and shit.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and that grandpa dude had a ton of makeup on. He was only like 18 or something when he played the role.
Yeah, Jim Dugan. Jim Dugan or Duggan? And he actually quit a paying gig in a children's play to be Grandpa in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's funny.
That's great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I read that they, the scene where the grandpa's like drinking the blood out of her finger. I don't know if it's true or not, but they said the prop that was supposed to, fakely bleed onto the finger wasn't working. So like after, 24, 25 hours at that point, they just said, fuck it. And they just cut her finger. It was real. Wow. So yeah, I don't know.
Ugh.
It was nuts to read that, but it was, 70s still. So nobody gave a shit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You could torture your cast and everything, make them puke out the window and everything. And just get back in here. We have to let this fake old man suck on your bloody finger.
Yeah, I was thinking something else too. When I saw that scene again, I was like, I'm pretty sure the hammer that they're trying to get Grandpa to hold is legit. And he keeps dropping it. And I don't know how many takes they did on that, but I'm like, it looks like he's really dropping a real hammer on her head. Like, I wonder if he really blasted her with it at some point.
Yeah, I was like, typically it would have been rubber in another movie, but like I was like, I think this is actually just a hammer.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sure,
seriously.
they like redid the sound or whatever, but I'm like checking out the weight of it. I'm like, I think that's legit.
Yeah, man. Well, they weren't fucking around, dude. The guy Jim, the actor that played the father, actually beat up Edwin Neal.
What?
Yeah, the brother that gets beat up in the famous like the headlight shot, that gorgeous shot where he's just like kicking the shit out of him. That's not
Yeah.
pulled punches. Apparently, he actually beat him up.
Oh damn.
Well,
Yeah, and then
Nubbins.
yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that in this, man. And again, I think it just keeps coming back to that idea of just the punk rock attitude of just, no holds barred. Like, we're just gonna do this. We're gonna do it right. We're gonna sit in this sweaty ass room and we're gonna make this super gritty movie. And now you have unions and lawyers and like all these people that like you'd never get away with that with Insidious. You got children on set. I'm sure
course.
all the scenes with the kid have to be filmed during the day. And I guarantee you it wasn't during the day in a 115-degree room.
no, there's regulations now.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Back then, it was a big pull the ripcord and fuck it.
Yeah. So I found these kind of interesting ideas that Grandpa and the hitchhiker, who doesn't have a name, he doesn't actually have a name.
I found his name. It's Nubbins or something like that.
Nubbins, but they don't say that
Nubbins.
until.
Never say it in the movie. Yeah,
yeah,
it's referenced outside the movie, unfortunately. But yeah.
Yeah, they bring it up in the second one. But yeah, so Nubbins and Grandpa are actually supposed to be like the farthest. They're the bookends, right, of the family. So you have the oldest one and the youngest one. And there's a quote from Toby Hooper. It says about Nubbins: if the family had been inbreeding, then he was 2 generations instead of just one, like the others. He's not sure where he wanted to make it seem like Nubbins was like even more removed from the family than even Leatherface. Like they even show like care for Leatherface, but for some reason Nubbins just gets shit on. Which I thought was kind of interesting that Nubbins is like could be the son of one of the brothers, not even like a direct relative of the well, I guess he would be a direct relative, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that the father may not be Nubbins' dad. He may be the grandfather, and then the great grandfather character, who is like ancient. Is he supposed to be like a psycho character where he's just like never dying? He's just
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
So in horror movies, I really like to look for supernatural elements to explain the mythos, where a lot of times people go like scientific on it, like zombie movies or Jason or whatever, Friday 13th, people will say, oh, this or that. I always like to go to dig for explanations in like the macabre and like, the occult and stuff like that. And the grandfather's like that scene struck me as weird because he's really just like fucking dead. He's almost like barely there. And the second he starts drinking blood, he's like all over the place. So I was thinking the same thing. I mean, if you want to dig into, whatever fan theories, there's probably some out there that he's got something going on. I don't know if it's demonic or vampiric or whatever, but it struck me as weird. And a lot of times people just make decisions in movies like this, and you can just take it and run with it and say whatever. But really, it was just a random decision made by the director or the movie creators. But you could say something's there, that it could be like some super cannibal or something more than human, right?
right.
Yeah.
Right.
What's keeping him alive? Is it the blood? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a quote from again, like I watched this weird documentary. You can find it on YouTube. I think if you just type in Texas Chainsaw Massacre making of or something like that, it's on YouTube. But Grandpa was actually meant to be seen as embryonic, and the finger sucking scene was actually supposed to represent nursing, and it was supposed to be bringing him back to life, like he was this stillborn fetus character or caricature, and then brought back to life through her blood, which is interesting. Again, talking about like the bookend thing with Nubbins, and then the dad and Leatherface are kind of in the middle there. I don't know if embryonic is even a word.
I think it's legit.
Okay.
No, that's interesting too because it builds on the mythos, you know, and I love seeing stuff like that, even if it's fan explained or whether or not it's actually from the creators. Um, and I hate when it gets derailed too. Like for example, in the Halloween series, you see there's some deviations, but you see like this almost collaborative plot starting to happen with like an explanation for why Michael Myers is what he is. And you know, once somebody else buys the rights, they change it up. But um, yeah, it was exciting to me in the early '90s, late '80s to see like, oh, this character is actually getting kind of like a explanation, like a backstory. You know, he's like druidic. He's
Oh, you're
very
talking like the Curse of Michael Myers and that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
actually carried that over to about 2 or 3 movies, right? And then it gets dropped. But same thing with you know Texas. You could if you watch all the movies, you could probably derive so many different pieces and be like, this could point to this could mean this.
Right.
And I dig that shit because it gives you more of a it makes that universe more substantial. It's not just some random decisions thrown together.
Right. So I got a question here for the academia world. Harry, do you think that leaning on or utilizing like horror as a palette to paint like a more metaphorical picture is like a hindrance, or it's a good idea? Do you prefer it?
Yeah, so at some point I was gonna say tonight that horror seems to like, I mean, not seems to, horror's about the family a lot, a lot of times. Like Insidious, it's about the family and like the family structure and the family dynamics and the weirdness of families and families gone wrong and blah blah blah. This is all very Freud and stuff like that. So like Texas Chainsaw is like super not different. It's really rooted in like families. You have the Sawyers, right? Have no females except I guess grandma's rotting corpse, right? And then and you have all these men, and like you just said, they're also like inbred. So you have lineage which we would understand, which all collapses. Grandpa is also a baby. Like things get flipped on their head.
Right.
So we see like a way to talk about like a corrupt family. I think what you're getting at is that like I want to say that it's really fruitful, and that's why horror movies do this so often. They explore uh problems of the family. Like Insidious is aggressively about uh what's her name can't write a song anymore, and dad is worried about aging. I think I got another gray hair or whatever, and like I'm kind of out of shape. Like all these like hairs of the family man sort of thing.
Right.
But like the danger would be, I think, what you're kind of stabbing at is do we get like does the horror part of it distract when you have like Rons of the world who want to go like, but the supernatural, like it's actually about Dracula, man. It's not about like how I feel about my dad. I mean, the answer with horror is that yeah, it's about both. And what does Ron's fascination with vampires have to say about his relationship to his mom? I don't know, man. But
All right, Freud.
yeah. So there is totally a really strong like psychosexual Freudian family stuff goes through horror, and you see a lot. Um,
Yeah, like every
it's really
fucking movie. I never thought about
it's
that.
really aggressive in slashers. I think it's really consistent.
Yeah.
Uh, More than like monster movies, you get to start doing the weird attraction of monsters and like the kind of sexual stuff and like creature of the Black Lagoon,
Bestiality.
things like this.
Bestiality. We could just say it. Bestiality.
Yeah, let's go.
Wait a
So
second,
then we
what
start.
are we
We ask
yeah, I don't know if I like the road this is going.
Yeah. Yeah. Guillermo del Toro is into women banging animals. Let's just say.
There you go.
No, you know what? I now that you say that, Harry, it's really rings true. And it's funny because I'm running through the different genres like Friday and everything in my head, and it's really there's not one slasher probably that it doesn't resonate with, which is crazy. Well, what's also cool is a lot of times, and I never did this before, but Harry actually got me to start thinking more deeply about films I watch and think about hidden meanings. And what I kind of got from this movie, if I had to bring it to that level, and not just this is, if we even skip the family thing, um, we touched on it a little bit, but like the like culmination of a bunch of world problems continually building up and piling up, and you can't escape that or ignore it even though society wants to or tries to. And this fucking movie, like 70 or 60% of it is fucking chase scenes, and it's like people are trying to get away from something and you can't. You can get a little bit ahead of it, you can get just ahead of it, and it's suspenseful, and it fucks with you. But nobody ever really, yes, at the end she gets in the truck, but other than that, nobody ever really fucking got away. Nobody gets away. You get 10 feet ahead, that's it. And then the rest of the time you're just fucking slogging, and if you stop, the shit catches up.
There's even the false rescue too, to like just kind of hammer that point more, and then that poor fucker gets it. So it's just like that, like, oh my god, I can catch my breath, and it's just like, ha, just kidding.
Yeah, like taking a fucking aspirin, your pain's gone, but your problem's not gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly, yeah, that's a great point too for that whole thing. It's just problems, not being able to get away from problems, not being able to ignore problems, whether you got yourself into that situation or not, whether it's your fault or not. It's like you have to deal with stuff. You can't just constantly try to get away. And I saw that in this film. So, but I would have never, and thanks Harry for that perspective too. And there's a lot of times now I watch movies and dig for shit like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going down the right road or not, but I'll start to see some patterns like that, which is interesting.
Yeah, that my family's fucked up, and I like horror movies because I identify with serial killers.
Yep.
Sick. Thanks, Harry.
Right.
For all the fucking listeners.
Yeah,
you're fucked up too.
Actually, speaking of identifying with serial killers, well, you touched on it a lot too. So I was trying to dissect Leatherface a little bit in this film, not using any other films as reference. And, like you said, the father is kind of like more lenient on him. And that may be because he's, less responsible, less, socially proficient. But there's a lot of times where Leatherface is really human in this, which you don't see in a lot of slashers. They're really just kind of nasty.
Yeah.
Like I can identify with Jason and sort of empathize with him just because of the fact that he's got a backstory and whatever. But, like somebody like Freddy, even Michael, you can't really empathize with. But Leatherface is just sort of living his life. He's doing what he's got to do. There's even a scene where he's like, what's her name? Is it Sally? Who's the final girl?
Well, he's reluctant at times.
Yeah, he's reluctant, and she fucking scares him at one point when she runs up the stairs and sees Grandpa and then runs back down. She's like, ah! She yells in his face. He jumps the fuck back. He's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And he's getting his ass kicked through the movie, by various reasons. And then the fucking scene at the end where he's dancing. I think he's happy she got away. I actually think that he's celebrating here, and he's not. I don't know. Obviously, it's filmed in a way that makes you say, "Oh, he's pissed off. He's freaking out." But I think you could even say he's glad she got away because he was sort of like feeling it. He was kind of happy. He was like touching her hair and stuff. He was all about her. So I don't know. Maybe I'm taking it too far of a level.
No. I definitely see that, and there's something to be said too, where his personality changes when his mask changes. He like takes on that person that he's literally wearing. There's actually a deleted scene, I guess. I don't know if there's a release of the movie where you can get it and see it, but there is a deleted scene where during the dinner, Leatherface is actually trying to impress Sally and leaves the table and goes and puts more makeup on. And then comes back to the table, which then, if we're going to be talking about weird families and incestual relationships and why the father is taking it easy on Leatherface, is he like a fill-in for the mother?
Well, I was reading that a little bit too, and it
Yeah,
said there's three
that's what it said.
masks. Yeah, there's his murder
Yep.
mask. There's his like sort of like housewife grandma mask, and then probably what you're saying, Billy. It's probably the same. Maybe it's two masks, and then he just makeups. It goes more on the makeup at the end. But they said there's a more like gentle mask that he wears when he's eating dinner, and he gets
That's
food
like,
on. Yeah.
isn't it Kirk's face?
Oh, is it at that point?
I think it's Kirk's face. But it has blush on, right?
Yep.
And like make and lipstick and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think it's Kirk. Because it looks a little like him, and Sally is particularly freaked out, so she's really freaked out.
That would make
that
sense
point.
why all the other later films use that like
Yeah.
trope, House of a
Yep.
Thousand Corpses, even the later releases of the Texas Chainsaw remakes, they
Yep.
they push really hard on those scenes, so that makes sense.
It's like the boyfriend or friend's face comes back, usually once or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
But no, I'm with you. I think he fills in the mother's role that's missing. Like that was my thought. When he's like has like a Afghan on or whatever, and like the wig, and is like in the kitchen, and the boys come home. I don't know, dad and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And he's kind of doting around. I mean, I agree. I think it's a thing.
And it's interesting too because
But,
then it's almost like an invasion movie where like Leatherface doesn't really know too much outside of that immediate family, with it being so rural, and the family's obviously very like non-inclusive. So it probably is very foreign to have some like pretty thing running around your house screaming, and he was probably scared shitless, not to like to like victim
Nice.
blame here, but the poor little fella was probably nervous,
Poor little guy.
Yeah.